House Speaker Nancy Pelosi threw cold water on the notion of defunding the police while speaking with George Stephanopoulos over the weekend. Now, she has demonstrated that she is actually, for the first time maybe, connected to what the temperature is among voters. And I'll explain what I mean by that after we watch the clip.
The other thing that's weighing on people right now is rising crime. And there appear to be some divisions among Democrats about how to handle it. Your colleague, Karen Bass, running for mayor of Los Angeles, is trying to increase the police force in LA. Cori Bush, congresswoman from Missouri, is saying it's time to defund the police. She's sticking by that. You're the speaker. How do you think Democrats should address rising crime?
Well, with all the respect in the world for Cori Bush, that is not the position of the Democratic Party. Community safety, to protect and defend in every way, is our oath of office. And I have sympathy, we're all concerned about mistreatment of people, and that's why Karen Bass had the Justice in Policing Act, and we would hope to get some of that done, whether it's no knock or Joe Colt or some of those issues, even if we can't get it all done. But make no mistake, community safety is our responsibility.
I also don't want you guys to make the mistake of thinking that this Congress is going to pass any type of reform whatsoever, whether it be no-knock warrants or chokeholds. On a federal level, it is unlikely that we're going to see any change in regard to reforming policing or combating the crime wave that we're experiencing right now. But I think what Pelosi said there, for the most part, demonstrates that maybe for the first time in a long time, she's kind of reading the temperature in the room. And even among Democratic voters, there is significant concern about the crime, the spike in violent crime. And she is essentially rejecting the notion of defunding the police. She's rejecting that slogan, which of course isn't really just about defunding the police. It's about reallocating resources to some social services in order to ensure that there is a more robust way of handling things like someone having, let's say, a mental health issue or something like that. Now, she was responding to what Cori Bush had told Axios recently. She said, defund the police is not the problem. We dangled the carrot in front of people's faces and said we can get it done and that Democrats deliver when we haven't totally delivered. So there's a lot of truth to what she's saying there as well, but I would say that it's in regard to the social spending bill that was, debated and negotiated for months and led to nowhere. I think it's also true when it comes to the voting rights bill. But let's be clear, I do agree with Pelosi that defund the police is not a slogan that's gonna be a winning one for the Democratic Party.
I actually think it's been counterproductive. So I said that in the beginning and I took a lot of heat for it because it's, oh yeah, now you don't get to tell us our slogans and stuff. First of all, when people say our slogans, it's incredibly arrogant, as if they are the chosen ones to represent everybody in the country or represent certain groups. I'm gonna give you the polling in a second that shows you that they were wrong and they were always wrong. But the reason it's counterproductive is because there needs to actually be massive police reform in this country. But when you call it defund the police, it leads people to thinking that there's anarchy. It makes them afraid, makes them less likely to do police reform, not more likely to do police reform. Now, oftentimes Nancy Pelosi yells at progressives in Congress, and she's full of it. And we explained to you guys exactly why she's full of it on every occasion, right? But this is a rare situation where she isn't. Now, why? Is it that we get to determine, oh no, we like Pelosi's opinion and we do on this one, but we don't like it on others? No, I'm saying it based on the polling. So on other issues, Pelosi will be like, no, Americans love insider trading. We're not gonna do what the progressives want, right? Oh no, Americans don't want lower drug prices. Whatever thing she's making up that isn't remotely true as she's yelling at progressives, right? But in this case, Americans do not like the slogan of defund the police or the idea of decreasing spending on policing. You actually could get them to like that idea because actually is in a lot of ways a good idea. So I don't disagree with the content so much, but the question is, what's the content? And you have to be a lot more specific. It's not randomly cutting police budgets. It's saying, hey, some services like mental health counseling and mental health professionals can do some aspects of policing better. But again, that isn't even the biggest police reform. There's so many things we need to do to reform the culture and the training of police in this country. And none of it is being addressed because we've gotten distracted into this issue where we're on the losing end for no reason at all.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get to the polling in just a second because Pew Research asked voters and also asked based on race how they feel about the notion of defunding the police. But to your point, Cenk, I mean, the idea of allocating more resources to social services to help with criminal justice obviously makes a lot of sense. But in order to reform policing, you actually need more resources, right? I think there needs to be better vetting of police. I think the training needs to improve. These are things that require more money, more resources. And so, and there is a problem with certain communities who don't have enough police, right? So you call someone and they're not there for you. They're not willing to respond to certain calls. That is a problem. So the idea, again, of the social services getting more funding makes a lot of sense. But if we want to actually reform police and make sure that they're doing the proper vetting and proper training to ensure that we have people who are actually concerned with protecting and serving, it does require more resources.
Yeah, this gets to the same big government, small government argument that where I use this curious analogy. Well, what kind of pipe do we need? Well, when I ask an open-ended question like that, you're gonna ask me, well, it depends. What job are we doing? We might need a small pipe, we might need a very large pipe, depending on the job. So to me, talking about how much resources we should give the police totally misses the point of the conversation. The question is, what are we giving them the funding for? So I don't know how much to give them if I don't know what they're gonna spend it on. If they're gonna spend it on military equipment and to bulldoze us and to kick the living crap out of us and to kill African Americans at a disproportionate rate, no, then I don't want them getting more funding for that. But if they're gonna spend it on transitioning to social services rather than nonstop abuse of minorities in this country, well, then I don't mind more spending. So the substance is what we should be focusing on. Meanwhile, the killings by police continue unabated throughout the country while we're talking about nonsense issues and never actually passing any bills.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The situation just keeps getting worse. And I wanted to give you that polling that I referenced a little earlier. So this is from Pew Research. It's several months old at this point, but I thought that it was interesting and honestly surprising. So the share of adults who say spending on police in their area should be increased now stands at 47%, up from 31% in June of 2020. That includes 21% who say funding for their local police should be increased a lot, up from 11% who said this last summer. This is last summer, that means 2020. This polling came out in late 2021. 15% of adults now say spending should be decreased, down from 25% in 2020. And only 6% now advocate decreasing spending a lot, down from 12% who said this in 2020. And what about black voters? Because what we keep hearing from lawmakers, including Cori Bush, is, listen, when I say defund the police, I'm representing the best interests, the desires of my constituents. She made the comments about defund the police during a call with some of the black voters in her district. But here's the reality. The share of black adults who say police spending in their area should be decreased has actually fallen 19 percentage points since last year, from 42% to 23%, including a 13-point decline in the share who say funding should be decreased a lot, from 22% to 9%. Among Democrats, black 38% and Hispanic 39% of adults are more likely than white adults, 32%, to say spending on police in their area should be increased.
So guys, those polling is determinative, that polling, yes. So first of all, I told you earlier, this framing was never popular, and we just showed you that at its peak, it got to 25% popularity. That's a terrible number. It's now down to 15%. You don't want to go into a political battle where you're starting at 15%, especially when the majority of Americans actually agree with you that the police should be reformed, just not in this weird way, right? Where you're not saying how to reform them, you're just saying, I don't know, cut their budget. So, look, to be fair to Cori Bush and other progressives, they have a whole laundry list of very good reforms. All I'm saying is you should focus on those instead of focusing and doubling down on this slogan, which clearly is not working. And it has to work so we get actual police reform. Now, the final thing is, to Anna's point, there's a lot of elites in Washington who claim to represent an entire group, okay? And so some of them have been saying all along, no, black people want to decrease funding to police. Well, that's just not true. It's just not. It's never been true. And now it's down to 23%. So I don't care if the person you're debating is Asian and you say you don't speak for black people, I do. No, neither one of you speaks for black people. The poll does. And you can say, oh, I don't believe in polling. That's nonsense. It's scientific. And if it isn't 23%, it's 25%. It's not that big a difference. The bottom line is it is definitely not popular among African Americans. So stop pretending that it is, okay? Now, if you said to African Americans on the other hand, hey, we're gonna change police training and culture, and we're gonna train it so that they do not abuse minorities, and here are the specific steps that we're going to take, that would be incredibly popular. So why don't we focus on that?
Right.
It's not that hard, guys. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.